if we're saying that autonomy, and we are saying that autonomy is valuable, is something that's worth having, then the obvious question is, okay, maybe it's worth having sometimes, like when you're looking for the Oculus or something, but is it always worth having? Is it always important? And I have a slightly different thought experiment here. It's very related, I think, to the LinkedIn experiment. And it's an experience, I think, that all of us have had, maybe not specifically with this television show or this streaming provider, but whether it's TV or Spotify music or something else, we all come into contact with predictive analytics, right? With artificial intelligence, which suggests to us or recommends for us what the next fill in the blank movie, song, etc., restaurant, and so on, what the next movie, song, restaurant is that we should look at, listen to, visit. That's what predictive analytics and AI, that's one of the things that AI does. And in the field of predictive analytics, I think that's the main thing it does, is that it recommends things to us, that the machine recommends things to us that it thinks we will like. And so in this case, I'm not sure if any one of you have seen this detective show called Poirot. This is an Agatha Christie character. It's kind of I think it's kind of an intriguing detective series. This kind of funny character. This is the detective. It's both sort of interesting and kind of funny at the same time. He goes around and solves he's kind of a French Columbo figure. He solves mysteries in his own way. And then, of course, it's a limited series. At some point, they stop making the shows. And so you go from season 3, episode 1, 2, 3, 4, season 4, episode da-da-da. I mean, at some point, you get to the end of the Poirot series, right? And then Netflix has a problem. For Netflix, it's really easy. If you've been watching Poirot season 1, episodes 1 through 5, and then season 2, episodes 1, 2, right? They've got a pretty good idea of what to suggest after episode 2, right? They just go right into episode 3. The hard part for Netflix comes when the Poirot episodes run out. Now we've seen seasons 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There's no more Poirot. They've got to suggest something else if they want to keep me in front of the television. And Netflix wants that, right? That's what they understand their job to be, to keep me stationed on my sofa, watching the screen. So how are they going to do that? Well, the first thing they do is the same thing they've been doing up to now, which is before this series episode even ends, or just as it's ending, it's very precise, just as it's ending, they're already rolling the next episode, right? This is true. Was true through all the. We'll just imagine that we all watched together the Poirot season. This was certainly true for the entire Poirot season. That as soon as season 3, episode 2 was coming to an end, before it fully ended, and certainly before they started running the credits, they were already showing in the corner the very start of the next episode. So we were never really broke away from Poirot. As soon as our interest had culminated and we were about to say, well, maybe I should go wash the dishes or something, who knows, right? Maybe I should go do something else. Just at the moment that idea would pop into our mind, the new episode starts. And so we're already thinking, oh, what's going to happen now? Who's going to, since it's Poirot, probably, unfortunately, someone is going to die. And so we're interested to see who that victim is going to be and why and how and that stuff. And so theoretically, we can't ever escape the television. So that's the way it works. That's what predictive analytics does. It's fine. But the challenge they have in Netflix is after Poirot is done, what do they put? And then another series, which is kind of similar, I think, but different, is this one called Shetland, which is about also a sort of idiosyncratic and curious detective, but instead of being in, I think Poirot is Paris, right? But he kind of is in Europe all over. He's kind of like James Bond, but funny. He's all over Europe. Shetland is this guy in Ireland or something like that. A very different kind of character, very salt of the earth kind of character. But if you like idiosyncratic detectives solving odd crimes, which Poirot is, then Netflix tells me that I will also like this Shetland character or this show called Shetland. I think that I can't remember if Shetland is the place where he is or it's his name or both. I don't know, but I know that I did get recommended Shetland. That's why I put it here. And so how does it work, right? Just as the last episode of Poirot is ending, you see it starts in 0 second. In 0 seconds, you see it at the bottom. It starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? And then it's going. And so once again, you're stuck. You can't get away from Poirot. So that's the way predictive analytics works. There's autonomy dilemma. It's very similar to the LinkedIn. Is our freedom, is our self-determination being facilitated or helped by this, or are we being trapped? Are we being imprisoned by this? I mean, is Netflix helping us be more free, or is it making us be less free? I'm not sure what the answer is. But what I wanted to talk about in this system, in this part of the discussion, is not just more or less freedom, but as I said at the start of this section, does freedom always matter? I mean, it's one thing, for example, to worry about freedom in a kind of a healthcare setting. I think almost all of us agree that if you're making a decision about a major life decision, like let's say, I'm just making this up again. Am I going to go in for some major surgical procedure because they think there might be, they think there might be a problem with my heart, so they're going to do some major surgical procedure on my heart. But of course, if it's a procedure like that, maybe I would die. Hopefully not, right? So this is a major decision, right? I'm literally risking my life to save my life. And I think most all of us agree that we should have self-determination. We should be free to make that decision for ourselves. And the question of autonomy or personal freedom is very important to that. But what about this for Netflix? I mean, even if we say, and this is the point I want to make, even if we say that Netflix is really imprisoning us, is kind of trapping us in front of the TV, it's exploiting the knowledge it has of our interests, it's exploiting the fact that they know that I like Poirot to tempt me with this new series and keep me trapped in front of the TV. Even if we say that this is an assault on my autonomy, even if we say that my autonomy is being radically limited or being constrained by these evil people at Netflix because they're forcing me to watch these TV shows, then we might say, well, wait a minute now. Even if it's true that Netflix takes away my personal freedom, and I'm not sure they do, but let's just say they do. Even if we say that, does it really matter? And that is autonomy always equally important? Certainly it's important when we're talking about healthcare, major healthcare decisions. But when we're just talking about watching movies, does autonomy matter? Does it have the same value? Is autonomy something like, let's say sort of like pregnancy, right? You're either pregnant or you're not, right? There's kind of no middle ground. It's 0 or 1. I mean, so is autonomy like that? Like something you have or you don't have? Or is autonomy something more like grains of sand, right? You can have a little bit of autonomy, 1 or 2 grains of sand, or you can have a lot of autonomy, sort of a whole beach. Right? So if autonomy is the second, if it's like sand, right, then we might say, look, healthcare decisions are kind of like beaches. There's a lot of autonomy involved there, a lot of sand, a lot of it. So we have to worry about that quite a bit. But movies is more like just 1 or 2 bits of sand. And if we leave the beach with 1 or 2 bits of sand and stomp those into the street, it really doesn't matter. And there's so much sand on the beach that who cares, right? If movies are like that, right? Or rather, if autonomy is like sand, then maybe we would say that movies are kind of like 1 or 2 grains of sand. And so autonomy really doesn't matter too much. And so we really don't need to bother too much about these ethical questions or the ethical question of personal freedom when it comes to Netflix. Whereas we do need to worry about it when it comes to health decisions. By contrast, so that's one way of thinking. By contrast, the other way of thinking is that autonomy is not like that. It can't be divided up. It's not like grains of sand. There's a beach of it, a little bit of it. Instead, autonomy is like, again, it's like pregnancy, right? Or it's like 0 and 1. You either have it or you don't. Or maybe autonomy is kind of, in a sense, like air, right? You can't really divide it up. You either have air or you don't, which is bad. So if autonomy is like that, if it's not divisible, it's something you have or you don't have, well, then in that case, then we have to be worried about the Netflix thing. So this is an important debate within autonomy. Is autonomy something, or personal freedom something we should worry about all the time, or only sometimes? And then, okay, so that's that. So we have the LinkedIn, where I think it's pretty clear that autonomy is important there because that's our professional life, our job. Then we have a similar question here, which is Netflix. And I'm not sure here that it matters as much. Some people say yes, some people say no. And then a third example, say Tinder. So have the same, this is also predictive analytics, whether it's LinkedIn predicting the right job for you or Netflix predicting the movie that you should watch. Dating apps do the same thing. They predict the right choice, or they try to predict the right choice for your romantic matchups. So we could think here too, and just quickly create the same thought experiments in your minds. If this is the way the experiment would be, if Tinder or Match or whatever app could give you the right pairing, right, the person who would be the best one for you, better than the one you could find in your own life, as good or better than one you could find in your own life, would you take that pairing if it meant that you couldn't experiment with or try dating anybody else? Right, just the same thing with the LinkedIn. And if Tinder knows you perfectly, let's just imagine that I'm single and I'm looking to get married, and Tinder knows me perfectly, and Tinder comes to me and says, look, Brousseau, we have your big profile, and there's this woman, Sarah Jones. I hope there's not a Sarah Jones in this class. There is, just made it up. Sarah Jones is the perfect woman for you. Once you sign up for Tinder, the two of you are matched up, and then let's just imagine you're legally required to marry each other and you're together, but it's good. It's good because Tinder works. It makes you happy. The guarantee I'm giving is that Sarah Jones really is as good or a better match than I would ever find in my own life, right? She's perfect for me, let's say. Now, would I take that deal if it meant that I could never date anybody else? You could go out to the extreme and say, imagine I could never in my life have ever dated anyone. It's just when you turn 18 or 21 or whatever age you decide, this is just a thought experiment, whatever age you decide, you're badged up with this one person, it's the perfect person, and off you go to live together, and you're happy. No married couple is ever perfectly happy, but you're as happy as you could possibly be as a couple forever. Great, okay? I mean, that's pretty tempting, right? And that sounds pretty good. If you could be as happy as possible romantically forever, that's a big reward. But the cost is also pretty high too, right? The cost is that you can't find out for yourself. The cost is that you can't experiment with other matches and so on. So the question is there, again, would you take that deal? That's a basic autonomy question. Does Tinder in that case give you autonomy or not? Part one of the question. But then part two of the question is it different? Your lifelong personal partner match And that's a big deal. Right? That's a lot. It tells you a lot about how successful and rewarding your life is going to be. It's probably, I think, I hope, it's a lot more important than what movies you're going to watch, right? So the question is, for maximum case like Tinder, is that also maximum autonomy? That is that where autonomy is most valuable? And then in Netflix, is that where it's less valuable? Or is autonomy, personal freedom, self-determination one of those things that's the same regardless? It's equally important, even when the stakes are relatively trivial. It's equally important whether we are talking about Netflix movies or lifelong romantic partners. And again, there's no answer. Like, we're talking about real stuff now, which means there's no answers to the questions. But asking the question itself is what is significant. And so that's where I want to leave that thought. I will show you in my classes, in my undergraduate classes, I always ask this question of the people on one of the tests. Not in this class now because I've given it away, but I usually do that and then reveal afterwards. And here are the results. I always ask them on the test, well, do you go yes or no for those three choices? And you can see that among PACE students, at least undergraduate students, in general, the answers are people do not take the deal. They do not want the movies to be picked for them. Again, for the Netflix, the idea of the dilemma is simply that Netflix will always give you exactly the movie you want, but you will lose the ability to scroll for yourself and choose your own movies. So that would be the Netflix deal. You always get the right movie, but you cannot scroll for yourself. For jobs, the idea is you will get the perfect job for you, but you can't experiment with anything else. And then for a romantic partner, again, you get the perfect spouse for you, the perfect person with whom to share your life, but you can't ever experience anyone else. And everyone says, well, you can see the numbers yourself. Most people say they don't take the deal. They say they don't take the deal. And then when I ask them why, most people, in my experience at PACE, most people say that, or let's say with New York City, young New York City men and women, most people think that taking the deal is a loss of personal freedom. Most people say that I am less free, I have less autonomy if I accept the movies being selected for me and the jobs being selected for me and the partner being selected for me. However, you can see a significant percentage. I mean, that's at least 10% and up to 20%. That's significant. They say, look, yes, I will give up my autonomy and my freedom. I don't want choices if I can get happiness, pleasure, convenience, right? If I can get the right movies without worrying about it, if I can get the perfect job for me, if I can get the perfect partner, those are big rewards, especially the latter two. And those are really big things. If you can maximize those kinds of happiness, are you willing to give up your self-determination? Are you willing to give up your freedom? That makes a lot of sense to me. Most people you can see, most New York City young people do not want to do that. I understand that. When you're young, you want to experiment. Of course, true. But I understand also that the 20% or the 10% or the 15% there, that's a big reward. And so the question is, will you trade your freedom for happiness? Will you trade your ability to determine for yourself what movies to watch, what job to have, which partner to have in order to get the right movie, the right job, the right partner? It's a hard question. But it begins to round out our understanding of what the value of autonomy is. Remember, we're trying to not just define it in some technical sense, which we've done. It's important. But we're also trying to understand it in some human sense. What does autonomy feel like? What will we trade for it? What's worth having? What's more worth having? And I think here what's being revealed here is there's a fairly clear trade-off between personal freedom, your ability to experiment with different movies, jobs, partners, and something like happiness. So what's worth more, freedom or happiness? And you can see if that's the choice, and I know that's the choice on the exam because I ask people, well, which one do you want and why? And what people say overwhelmingly is, what most people say is they want the freedom because it's worth more than happiness. But a fair number of people say, look, happiness, contentment, getting the right thing, that's worth more than freedom. So you can decide for yourself. And then just quickly, to bring this back down to earth, that's all very abstract, but there's also a practical element to what's going on here. In the European Union, and this appears to be true generally, as regulations and laws are being deployed, forgetting the term for exactly what promulgated. Yes, when the laws are being promulgated, divisions are being drawn between high risk and medium risk and low risk artificial intelligence systems, which basically means kind of the Tinder, LinkedIn, Netflix distinction. Most governing agencies, what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, look, for stuff like Netflix, Spotify, we don't need to put a lot of regulations onto AI. We don't need to put a lot of protections. People can decide for themselves they want to use those tools. And even if people sort of get tricked into watching Netflix show after show, Netflix ends up just telling them what they want to watch. It's really not a big deal, so we don't need to worry too much about that. Forget it. Then as we get up toward medical things, and maybe the LinkedIn experiment would be in the medium risk or limited to high risk, right? It's more important in our lives. Well, in those areas, then we have some, at least the current thinking is that we should have some more rules and some more regulations to decide. This is always just a question in political theory for our overlords in Washington, D.C., or Brussels, or Paris, or Rome, or what have you, for our overlords to tell us what we can and can't do, and can and can't see, and can't say, and so on. It seems like that the thinking, the mainstream thinking now is that there are some medium risk things where the government should prohibit or severely limit your ability as a user to make your own decision about whether or not you use certain devices and things, and maybe that might be LinkedIn or something like that. And perhaps the rules are that normally the rules are not that you're prohibited from using these things, but instead that there are all kinds of permissions that must be sought and all kinds of limitations that are placed upon the companies. Maybe those are good things, maybe they're not, probably a mix. You have to decide for yourselves as time goes on. And then at the highest level, there's unacceptable risk. Those are areas where at least some governments believe that citizens should not have any rights at all to make a decision about artificial intelligence, and companies should not have any rights at all to even deploy these kinds of artificial intelligence. One of those areas is social scoring and facial recognition. We're going to talk more about those things later, but what I'm trying to say here, and the reason I'm bringing this up is, well, there's two reasons. One, because I thought it was time to make sure that we see that this stuff that we're talking about, it does connect with the real world, and the laws that are being promulgated with these ideas in mind that we're talking about now, with this idea that autonomy, maybe it means more in some areas of experience than others. Maybe we should say that it matters if LinkedIn or Tinder is taking away from our personal freedom, but maybe who cares if Netflix does that? Or maybe not. I mean, I think that you can certainly disagree. Of course you can disagree. with the way governments today are dividing up, or the way they're thinking about regulating artificial intelligence. And many people do disagree. Many people say, look, that's just not the way we should be thinking about it. We'll have to see how all this pans out. But what's important for this class is that you understand that that's the question that is being asked. Right? The question is citizens' autonomy, personal freedom, self-determination should be protected, even if it means that they're denied the right to use certain things. So it should be protected. And the question is, when should it be protected? Always, sometimes, in some categories, or not. It's going to be a very hard decision. It's going to be very difficult to get this right. And certainly there will be a lot of errors on the way. The technology is advancing very rapidly. So it's hard to know beforehand which technologies are going to legitimately help us be more free and which technologies are going to subtract from our freedom, subtract from the choices we have. We will have to see as time goes on. Okay, so that's the questions to stop at and consider for a moment now. The question is, how is autonomy? Is autonomy one of those things which is like sand? That is, you can have a lot of it or a little of it. And in that case, there are some areas where it's more important, some areas where it's less important. Maybe it's important for Tinder and LinkedIn, but not important for Netflix. Or by contrast, is autonomy more like a 1 and a 0 or pregnancy? You either have it or you don't. In which case, we should be equally worried about autonomy, whether we're talking about Netflix or talking about a lifetime partner. I'm not sure. Okay, so we'll take 5 minutes to think about that. And then we go on to the question of explore, exploit.